Mother's Day, as I said in the opening, Mother's Day can be a very complicated day for all of us. For some, it is a joyful day in which you celebrate with gratitude all the many gifts that your mother or being a mother means to you. For others, it carries grief, loss, a sense of distance, maybe reflection on infertility, broken relationships, memories that still ache. And for many mothers themselves, it is just exhausting. It's another day to try to satisfy everyone else's expectations. But nevertheless, Mother's Day has a sense of beauty embedded through it all. And that beauty is because mothers know something about sacrifice, about suffering. They know something about fear and worrying. They know something about sleepless nights and worrying and hurting for the sake of someone else. Mothers know what it means to go through hell because they are willing to go through hell for their children. I know because I put my mother through it. And I know because I've watched my wife in the way in which she has gone through hell for all of her children, even this adult one. Mothers know what that's like. And so today, I think it helps us if we reflect a little bit on this line in the Creed, where it says, He descended into hell. We confess that every week. Sometimes the variation is He descended to the dead. Sometimes it's descended into hell. It means the same thing. It's just different variations of the words of the original language. What does that mean, that Jesus descended into hell? I think what mothers do is a reflection of that and why it matters to us that we confess that that's where Jesus goes to every Sunday when we confess that in our creed. Our reading from 1 Peter is one of the most known for the theology that leads to that creedal statement of Jesus descending into hell. Where Peter says, For Christ also suffered for sins once for all, righteous and for the unrighteous, in order to bring you to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which also he went and made a proclamation to the spirits in prison. Now, what does all that mean? Well, we Lutherans have long understood Christ's descent into hell as a way in which Peter is referencing that between the death and resurrection time of Jesus going into that prison to free and release those that are captive in hell, held captive by their suffering, held captive by their worry, by their pain. Jesus goes there in our creed. And Lutherans have long understood this to be more than just about Jesus' suffering. The descent into hell is also about Jesus' victory. Though the resurrection in the content of it has not yet happened, it's about Jesus going with a power to release from pain and suffering. Because he first went through the cross. So Jesus, when we confess every week in this creed, Jesus descends into the deepest darkness, into death itself, into hell itself, and declares that sin, death, and the devil no longer win. The one who was crucified now stands victorious. The one who seemed defeated now proclaims freedom. The one who entered the grave now bursts forth from it. But before there is victory, before there is Easter, there is the descent. Jesus goes all the way down into suffering, into abandonment, into death, into the places where human beings and all of us time and again feel trapped, lost, aggrieved, ashamed, terrified, hopeless. Well, when we feel like we're in hell, Jesus goes there. And mothers understand this probably better than the rest of us. I mean, not literally, of course, but emotionally, spiritually, deep in their heart, absolutely, they get this. They totally get this. A mother sits awake at 2 o'clock in the morning while her child burns with a fever. A mother waits anxiously for a phone call from a teenager who is way past curfew. A mother cries silently after hearing cruel words from a child that she loves. A mother carries burdens that no one else ever even sees or understands. A mother worries constantly. A mother sacrifices sleep, time, energy, and sometimes her own sense of self for the sake of her children. Love takes people into painful places, and that is so true for moms, even grandmoms. And it's true for Jesus, and that's the point today. The cross is the ultimate picture of that truth that God goes to there's no depth that God will not go to come and rescue us and remind us that we are loved eternally. God does not love us from a distance. God is not about an encouragement safely from the kingdom of heaven. In Jesus, God comes down, suffers the same way we do, alongside us, enters into the pain and the suffering, the grief, the terror, the loneliness. Jesus goes into and through hell for all of God's children. That's us. And that is what Peter is saying, and what we are confessing to believe when we receive and profess the creed. We're saying that there is no darkness that Christ refuses to enter for us, that there is no prison he will not walk into for us, there is no depth he will not descend to in order to bring us home. And every mother and grandmother in this room knows a little something about that kind of love. That's why we honor this day every year. The love of a mother often reflects the love of Christ. The willingness to suffer for another person's life. The willingness to completely revamp their whole life for the sake of someone else. That's a glimpse into the love of Christ, which is God in the flesh. And I think that's why Mother's Day touches us all so deeply. Because at its best, motherhood reflects the shape of the gospel itself. The kind of love that says, I will walk through pain if it means you live. I will endure hardship if it means you are safe. I will keep showing up even when I am exhausted and you're not showing up. I will go into all those dark places where even I'm terrified because I know you're terrified and I love you. That is what Jesus does. That is the love of God. And that is a reflection of every mother's love for her children. And there lies, see, the good news. Because Jesus does not merely descend into hell, he comes back victorious with the resurrection on Sunday. The descent into hell is not the end of the story. The suffering is not the end of the story. The pain, the worry, all of that is not the end of the story. The grief is not the end of the story. Christ's resurrection is the end of the story. The darkness, the sin, the suffering, the abandonment, the grief, the death, they do not win this story. God wins. This love of God that sacrifices for the sake of all of us, that love is what wins. Love wins. And moms totally get that. And this means the dark places in our lives, I'm not the end either. For the mother overwhelmed by worry, Christ is there with her. For the parent grieving a child, Christ is there. For the person carrying wounds from their family, Christ is there. For the lonely, the ashamed, the anxious, the exhausted, Christ is there. Comforting. Finding other people even to inspire, to wrap around and bring hugs where they're needed. Encouraging, strengthening, reminding that today will pass and tomorrow is a new day. Christ is there. And Christ visits upon all of these moments too in the life of a congregation, a family of faith, where we wrap around one another in prayer and support, maybe candlelight and what have you. We wrap around one another and remind everyone that when you're suffering, when you're worrying, Christ is here in our community. We'll get through this together. You see, there is no hell so deep that Christ cannot enter, and there is no darkness so strong that Christ and His church cannot overcome it. That is the promise of Easter. That is the meaning of the creed when we say those words. And that is the hope that we cling to today. So today we give thanks for moms, for grandmoms, for great-grandmoms, and all that they mean and bring to us. For stepmoms, for foster moms, for spiritual moms, and for all those who have loved, nurtured, sacrificed, protected, and endured for the sake of another, because it's a reflection of the same love of God that saves us and rescues us and promises us eternal life. So as we give thanks for our moms today, remember this, that every act of sacrificial love is pointing us toward Jesus, the one who went through hell for all of us, so that nothing, not even death itself, has the power to separate us from the love of God that we experience in one another. Thank you to all the moms and grandmoms. God bless you.